Experimental Film Research and Development by Aaron Fletcher. I decided to develop the 360 workshop task as I enjoyed working with the Insta360 camera and liked how the first person view immersed the audience in the horror of the film. For the task, I filmed myself walking down a dark street at night, muttering about how creepy it is and where my friend is, ending with me turning a corner and seeing a man standing under a broken flickering light, who then runs at full pelt towards the camera. There is then a quick cut, and he is stood in front of the camera playing rock paper scissors with the audience character. This ending gives it a comedy element, as well as the horror throughout, as I wanted to give it something different rather than a dull stereotypical horror. I originally wanted to only use the front-facing camera on the Insta360 to give it a fisheye lens view, but eventually decided against this as I wanted to be able to view the film in a VR headset. Because of this idea to have the film meant for a VR headset, I wanted to develop the horror aspect of the film as well, and started coming up with some ideas like a serial killer horror where someone is hunting down women on campus, and the protagonist's girlfriend was taken, so they have to hunt the killer down themselves, but get quickly captured themselves, or a suspense horror where someone knocks at the front door, and when the protagonist goes near it, they hear the person knocking say, "I know there's only two of you in there." A discussion follows about what the two will do as the person outside keeps knocking. Or a backroom style horror where the protagonist travels through endless rooms with slight differences. Or a vampire horror about a hidden vampire in plain sight that has to be rooted out whilst more deaths happen. Or a zombie horror where an apocalypse has broken out and the protagonist has to fight their way out of the building, floor by floor. Whilst I liked all these ideas, most are hard to do on a small budget and not very experimental. So I decided on suspense horror with elements of the back rooms. First, I started filming outside and in multiple locations, but this did not work, as the wind was too loud and the sounds of the city took over any aspects of horror. So I changed filming to in a stairwell in a high-rise flat building. The premise is that the audience should feel as though they are trying to escape a stairwell, but every time they go to a door towards the lift, there is a creepy man with their back to them, blocking the lifts. There is no strong narrative to the film to allow the audience to interpret their own narrative of the film and what is going on around them, as I believe the essence of experimental film is to make the audience experience something entirely different person to person, which is easily achieved in 360 VR media, as the individual experience completely depends on where the audience is looking at every point of the film. On playing VR games like Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, Phasmophobia, Five Nights at Freddy's, The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners, and Batman Arkham Shadows, I found them much more engaging than your typical horror games and horror films. Although different genres of horror, all are played from the first person POV, so fully immersive and really puts the audience in the middle of the horror that you can never get with non VR content. This is what I wanted to capture with my experimental film. Originally, I planned to have ADR added of the audience character asking the man in the suit who he is and talking to themselves as they walk around the stairwell, but it broke the immersion of the film as the audience wouldn't feel as though they were seeing everything through their own point of view, with dialogue coming from their view. The film was now being made with the VR headsets in mind and as the main mode of watching, as I have personal interest in VR games and media, and I was involved in the Female Creatives Expanded Cinema project, where I was going to make a VR interactive film but was unable to complete due to personal circumstances. I also believe that watching in a VR headset is the best way to fully immerse the audience and make them feel as though they are the protagonist. Originally, we were going to film in multiple locations, but the constant switching of location broke immersion, making the audience not feel as though they were there. Marble Hornets was a big inspiration as it was a first-person suspenseful horror that feels like found footage, which my film feels like. The sense of being hunted also came from Marble Hornets. The notes on the walls came from the game Slenderman Arrival, which is based on Marble Hornets. Frankenstein 1910 is probably inspiration for all silent horror films. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, although another silent film, is the inspiration we have taken from this film, is the strong sense of foreboding around the duality of the two characters, Within Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, there is always a sense that there is this character, Mr. Hyde, in the background, always there, always following the characters and the story. Backrooms is an inspiration, as the feel of walking towards the stairwell being followed in my film is very similar to the eerie feeling in Backrooms, and as the protagonist walks first person around empty rooms. I'm now going to go through the final film from the start. From the start, you can see the use of static used to cover up issues with the footage, like the camera person being in frame, because the audience is meant to feel like the protagonist, which wouldn't work if they can see the camera person, and to generate a sense of foreboding whenever the antagonist is supposed to be nearby or on screen. Another issue it covers up are continuity issues, as this is a one-shot and takes place in the stairwell. It was very difficult for the actor playing the antagonist to get to each floor in the lift at the same time as the walking protagonist. The on-set audio I used was primarily the audio from the stairwell. It gave a great sense of terror, especially the footsteps that echo in the stairwell. To hide the camera person completely, I used grey bars in the editing process that, when rendered into a 360 video, made the back of the audience view where the camera person could be seen completely blocked out. When watching other VR content, that is first person POV, this blocking out of the camera person is often used so that the audience isn't taken out of the film by the presence of the camera person. The antagonist gets closer on every sight of them, which should make the audience feel the urge to run, but they have no ability to, as it's a film, which creates that extra sense of dread. On testing this film in a VR headset, it made me feel very on edge, which was what was planned when creating the film. To create this effect, I layered over the scene 2 different clips and simply lowered the opacity of the original whilst making the next clip slowly grow in opacity and use keyframes to do so.